Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Alright my friends, welcome to February, fully into February. Wow, it is February 7th. That is wild to me, just whoa. And yeah, we're gonna have a fun weekly wrap up today. I'm so excited. As always, I have a few announcements at the front end and then we will get into talking about this week where we have some new releases, we have some rereads, and as is the pattern, we have some fan fictions to talk about. A couple of the announcements that I have up front, well, I guess one announcement, and then the other one is some channel members to welcome. Next week, there won't be a weekly wrap-up. I will have a video though, so it won't be the case that I will be going down to only 2 videos. I will have a video that is not a weekly wrap-up go up on Sunday. I'll pre-film something, but my grandparents, it is their 60th wedding anniversary. Yes, my grandparents got married actually on Valentine's Day 60 years ago, which is just lovely, so lovely. And so next weekend I'll be traveling with my parents to their party that they're having, and I won't be back until I think probably Tuesday. So I'll be gone from Friday to Tuesday. And so yeah, there won't be a weekly wrap up next week. So we will have a double the fun coming up the weekend after that. It's actually crazy because February is about to get super busy because then the weekend after that is another crafters retreat, which I'm really excited about. But I'll still have a weekly wrap up go up the weekend of crafters retreat because that's here in town. But yeah, and then, and then February will be like almost done already, which is crazy. So yeah, that's exciting. But yes, I do have 2 new channel members to welcome. So thank y'all so much. I guess this is an announcement. This is just me going to wax poetic as I do. So if you just want to skip ahead to the book reviews, that's totally fine. But I was just reminiscing with one of my friends that, I'm so thankful for how supportive particularly my channel members and patrons have been, because, as again, this isn't a poor me thing at all. This is I am constantly blessed and shocked at just how lucky I am, because when I have moments of, being unsure about the choices that I've made and where I've led this channel to and the decisions I've made, I've talked about how I struggled with the choice to step back just a little, which honestly, it's so silly to say it like that. But to step back just a little bit and go down to 3 videos a week and 1 vlog a week, which is still so much work. It really is. It's not like I'm, kicking back and doing nothing. I still have a full load. But my views are obviously down quite a bit and my YouTube income is down quite a bit, but I've had new channel members every week to shout out, and I've had Patreon just really step in and fill that void is the wrong word, but any dip that I've seen by not having a Tuesday video has completely been scooped up in other places before I even had a chance to worry about it. And that just feels really affirming that, taking a step where I was honestly panicking the first Tuesday that I didn't post a video. I literally had to be out of the house and not look at my phone for the dumbest reasons, because it's not like my whole channel was going to combust, but it's a mental block of I was letting someone down or something, and then things work out in different ways, so that's beautiful. So anyway, thank you to the new channel members. We have Dale Barajas, again, so sorry if I butchered that, I apologize. And then Bronte Murphy, they both joined at the dedicated diva level. So thank you so much for supporting the channel. I appreciate that so much. And at the dedicated diva level and above, they both get early access to videos, which is wonderful, which means that those videos that I'll be pre-filming for when I'm gone, they'll have access to those. So that is wonderful. So thank you both so much. I'm very appreciative of that. And that is one thing that I keep talking about it, and I just really need to do it. One of the things I want to work on in 2026, we'll give myself the whole year worth, is I want to work towards something with channel memberships to kind of put all channel memberships into one tier. And in that, I would probably make it even like a lower tier amount so that I'm not like asking people to pay more for that single tier. But I pretty much want to just give all channel members everything that I offer, and just have there be one tier that's a YouTube channel membership, and then have Patreon be the place where there's all the different tier levels, just because I still value my YouTube channel membership so much. They're the first place where I realized there was a community who wanted more from me. But at the same time, I feel like the way YouTube, I don't know, the way that they kind of flaunt channel memberships to people, and they take so much of it anyway, that I just want to make more things available to channel members, because I don't know, it's a hard, not the place or time, but it's something that I'm kicking around anyway. So I'm always very thankful when people sign up for channel memberships, because I feel like YouTube makes it, like the way that they advertise it to people and do stuff with it, I'm always kind of like, thank you for cutting through the bullshit to support me through YouTube with it in a weird way, right? So, anywho, let's get into what we're talking about, because I think this one will be interesting. I have 2 rereads to talk about, some fan fiction, and 2 new reads to talk about, like I said. So it's going to be fun. And I think it's going to be interesting as well, because these 2 rereads are both rereads that my opinion changed a little bit about them as I did it. And I think the first one I have to talk about will be kind of the one that I'm like a bit disappointed, but I also wasn't surprised. So I just want to be clear about that, because both of these rereads, they're Patreon ones, right? You know, I'm rereading and annotating these. And so let's just get into it. So I reread Filthy Rich by Serena Ackroyd. And this isn't the first time actually that I've annotated Filthy Rich. It's just the very first time I annotated it was before I was keeping a copy of it. This has happened a few times, right? When I very first started annotating, I didn't foresee people want like multiple copies being a thing. I've said this. So, you know, I've been doing annotated copies now for going on 4 years. And I very quickly realized that if I didn't want to keep rereading the books over and over and over again and having to come up with new things to say every time, I should probably keep a copy for myself that I've annotated. But it's been a very long time since I reread this one. It was literally in the first year of annotating this. And even so, I still had a lot of friendlier feelings about this book. And even so, I want to be clear, I did not hate rereading this. There was just a few things I found a lot more trite than tropey about it this time around. And there are a few more things about Serena Ackroyd's writing that really ground my gears this time. However, I would still and will still put this in recommendation videos for beginner Mafia, because it definitely does that. And I would still include Serena Ackroyd in lists with Cora Riley and Sophie Lark, and lists like that with authors that are great, you know, for beginners. Because it's really easy to get into in that aspect, and the family structure and the kind of marrying for a deal, and you know, the women must be a virgin, and one of the families is really abusive, and they enter into another family where the women are shocked at how well treated they are. And, you know, it just will feel so much like you roll your eyes at like, oh, wow, the bar is on the ground. But like, that's Mafia, you know. And in this one, we have Anessa, who she is from the Bratva. She has always known she's basically going to get handed over to some man, probably an old, fat, ugly one, who will rape her and put babies in her, and she won't have any say in her life. Like, she fully believes that's what's going to happen to her. And when she's 16, this marriage deal gets brokered with the Irish, with the O'Donnelly family or the 5 Point Mob, whatever. This series has went through a lot of different names. It used to be called the Filthy Feckers, then it was called the 5 Point Mobs. It also will be called the O'Donnelly family. It's had many different iterations and names, but I originally knew it as like the Filthy Feckers is what it was to me. But Owen is the youngest in the family, and he's the one who kind of gets served up as the one who's going to be the sacrificial lamb. And he wants nothing to do with this at all, but it's duty and he doesn't really have a choice. But when this marriage contract gets agreed upon, when Anessa is only 16, Owen's not really around. And so it's actually Declan, who I think is the, I don't even remember off the top of my head, but I think he's like, I don't know, he's in the middle somewhere, whatever, who meets Anessa first. And he's very kind to her, actually, and he realizes that, you know, he's going to be looking out for Anessa until it's time for her to marry his brother. But Owen doesn't even bother to meet his fiance until the wedding day. So let's fast forward to that. She's met all his brothers, met his parents, and actually gets along with a couple of his family members. Though again, she hasn't really got to spend a ton of time with them. From the few interactions she's had with them, she realizes like they're not quite as scary as she's been led to think that the Irish are. But she is a very abused girl, and she's been threatened by her father, you know, a Bratfa Pecan, that she's supposed to spy on her new husband. And she's been threatened to the point of she has been abused by her father. And on the day of her wedding, she's been made up literally to hide her bruises. And so much makeup has been caked on her, which they're just such idiots. Like, that's part of the struggle with this book for me too, is it's like, what did they think they were going to get away with this? I mean, I guess they were thinking the Irish would be just as nasty as they were, is what they thought, that Owen would just fuck his bride and like not care that she was hurting so much. Like, I mean, that is what they must have assumed. But Owen, being the observant man that he is, sees this bride who, to him, I mean, she doesn't look like a child, but she's very young, his 18-year-old bride. He can tell that the way she's carrying herself, that her ribs are broken. He's a soldier, actually. He was a sniper in the military. And he can tell the way she's carrying herself that her ribs are broken. He can tell through the heavy makeup that she has a black eye and that she has bruises on her face. And before he's even spoken to her, he's pissed because he's like, what are they doing? Now, again, his first thoughts they aren't even really that charitable to Owen. Like, I'll be honest, like, even the first time I read it, I remember thinking like, oh, wow, he's just pissed that his goods are tarnished. And that's okay. Like, your mind changes about him pretty quickly. His first thought is, he's like, what are they trying to pull off? Are they giving me a defective woman? But then it's very clearly, he's like, wow, someone beat her to within an inch of her life. And then they're handing her over to me like they think we wouldn't notice. And she's mine. Like, again, he very quickly is like, she's mine. Like, they've made this deal. Like, they're the ones who are giving their child to me. And they have the audacity to be handing her like property. Like, again, he wasn't in on this deal. He's being pushed into this deal. But if you're going to be giving her to me like property, why are you having beaten her within it? You know, so it's this weird mix of like, he's even pissed that he's looking at her that way, but he's also like, but if you are doing that, then why did you do this? And so literally at the altar, when he takes her hands, he's like, who did this to you? And so he's kind of whispering to her while they're having their marriage ceremony, and she's trying to kind of like ignore him because they're getting married. And he tells her, he's like, if you tell me who did this, they are never going to do it again. And once the marriage ceremony is completed, he pulls her aside into another room and is like, who did this to you? And like, she won't say. But then the father comes in And he is like, if you ever touch what's mine again, I will kill you. And then his father comes in and is like, yeah, that's not a good look. Don't do that. And so there's already kind of this like bond being made between them a little bit. She's like, oh, well, maybe he is a bit more of an upstanding man. At least it seems like he's a bit offended that I was beaten. So they're kind of making this bit of ground gets covered. And again, I remember back to the first time I read this, I hadn't read a ton of Mafia, and I love that kind of guy where, again, he's not excited to be marrying this woman who's basically a child. This is a part of the Mafia thing. Like, he's not thrilled, but he feels protective. He's like, if you're gonna force me into this marriage, then I'm gonna take it seriously and I'm gonna protect what you've given to me. And you can't treat her like shit because she's my wife now, and that means she's family, and we don't hurt our women, and blah, blah, blah. So I find that stuff very, like, I love the insta protectiveness. But then we enter into the next phase, which then gets even more exciting. So he's warming up to her a bit. They have some good kind of moments at their wedding even. He's even kind of apologizing for the fact that he hadn't tried to meet her before their wedding. He's like literally introducing her to people in his family, and she's like, dude, I've met everyone. You're the only one I hadn't met. I already know your mom. I've met your dad. I've met all your brothers. It's literally you I haven't met. And he's kind of a bit chagrined, but also he just had been trying to ignore this so much. Anyway, I need to move the story along. So now he is warmed up a little bit to the idea of like, okay, I like that she's a little bit feisty. She's mine now. We're going to consummate this marriage. Maybe this won't be as bad as I think. Well, now they get to his penthouse and someone has set him up, okay? Because when the elevator doors to his apartment open, his ex-mistress, and for real, it's just a woman he's slept with a few times, is on his couch completely naked, playing with herself on his couch, when he's just brought his bride home. And Anessa literally just doesn't interact with the woman, looks at this naked woman there and walks by and goes into the bedroom. And Owen is just absolutely livid, not only because, again, like, he has only slept with this woman a few times. How did she get in here? Because he's very, like, he doesn't even fuck this woman in this. Like, he doesn't bring anyone to his home. So how did she get past his security and up into his home? What is she doing there? Not only is this very offensive to his new bride, he doesn't know this woman well enough for her to have been here. It's not like she stayed with him here ever. So someone absolutely set him up, is trying to ruin this match before more has even happened. So they get, and the reason why I'm going into detail on this, I promise I'm not going to step through this entire book for you guys. This is literally the first couple chapters, and then I will move on from it. But what this leads to is that he kicks this woman out, and he goes into the bathroom, and he finds Anessa, and she has taken off all her makeup, and now she's standing there in her dress, and he truly sees the level of damage that was done to her by her father, and what he learns is her stepmother as well. And he sees the state of her bruises without the makeup on, and he's like, okay, well, we will not be consummating this marriage tonight. And he explains to her that I, of course, did not invite this woman here. He's like, I want to have a good marriage with you, but, like, we're not going to be consummating this tonight because you were, like, literally were beaten within an inch of your life, and, like, we're not going to do that. But he's like, but I want us to have a good faith thing. We're not going to lie to one another. And he also makes an oath to protect her, and he says, no one's ever going to touch you again. You're going to be in control of that part of it, and, like, we're going to be truthful. And she asked him to make a blood oath to her. And so she literally takes out, I think there's some kind of, like, cosmetic scissors or something, and they literally do a blood oath there in the bathroom, that despite what's happening between their families, and though they were married because this was a deal or whatever, that their relationship, their marriage, like, is going to be important, and that their first priority is going to be each other, And a very important part too, which I always loved, and this is, you know, these were things that I really loved when I read this book the first time around. He even says too, he's like, and we promise that we won't jump to conclusions. Like, if you ever think you know something, promise you'll talk to me about it before you assume a thing. Which I thought was a really good note to put in there, because that's something that I always hated about particularly other mafia wives and things like that. So yeah, it has such a strong beginning to it. And I still felt that way about it. Now, again, let me skip now to why I didn't like this as much this time around. And this was a book that at one point was a 6-star read for me way back when I had read it. You know, when I was actually first starting to give 6-star reads, like, this was a book that was a 6-star read for me, because it had those type of moments. I love that he immediately is protective. I love that he immediately is like, I will burn the world for you. Later on, when her father does threaten her again, Owen is like, I fucking warned you. You get one warning, bro. Like, I don't care what deal we made. She's mine now, that you have no claim anymore. Like, she's an O'Donnelly now. Like, fuck you and whatever else was going on. Like, no. But what really tears this down is a few things for me. One, I know what the weight of the rest of the series is now, which I can't undo when I read this. There already is series creep in this book. You guys have been around a while. You will know that one of the big problems I have with Serena Ackroyd is her absolute insistence that you can read this as a standalone, but the 5 Points collection is actually going to encompass a bunch of characters. So all of these books are standalones, and you don't have to read them in any order. But really, here's the order, and there's 40 books in there. And don't tell me you don't have to read them all when you start putting POVs of 4 other characters show up in this book already. And I always forget when I want to read one of these earliest books of hers, how quickly she starts shoving in the POVs of other people. And you can't just enjoy this book about just Anessa and Owen without her starting to shove all the other stories in there to try to make you read those. As a juxtaposition, I am currently also rereading Aniva Altai. I'm needing to annotate one of hers. And she introduces you to the other characters through the eyes of your main characters. And then the epilogue of that book has the POV of the next character. Why can't you do that? Like, why can't you do that? Because then it's like optional to the person reading this book if they want to like read that epilogue, you know? And she starts shoving in the POVs of Ayla and Declan, and she even puts Aoife in here, and all of those starting very early in the story. And it just immediately then reminded me of all these negative feelings I have about what happened with this series, and it got me mad. One final other thing, the derogatory terms for females. The amount of times the word slut was used, which I know I sound like such a granny or like so nitpicky, but oh my God, like the amount of times that Anessa's stepmother was called a slut. I don't love the stepmother, but I'm also intelligent enough to realize that that stepmother is also just trying to stay alive as well. Okay, there are some things that stepmother does that I don't love. I'm not saying I love her and I want to be with her. But for any of the guys in here, and Anessa as well, who she grew up in the house she grew up in, and she's seen how the women are treated, to act like that stepmother isn't just trying to stay alive as well and sleep with who she has to sleep with to stay alive, and then just call her a slut constantly, anytime it's the stepmother slut is what she's called, is so gross. I started literally blacking out the words in my copy, because I also annotated this right for my page. In my copy, I literally was blacking out the word slut everywhere I saw it, because I was so sick of it showing up. And I was like, God, I feel like the purity police with this, and I don't want to feel like that. Like, ugh, I don't. But it just was the least creative way to show that you hate a woman and make them one-dimensional is to start degrading her by calling her a slut because she's trying to survive. And then it reminded me of like, oh yeah, that's why I hated the MC series that Serena Ackroyd read, and why I only read like 2 books in that one, because it's so degrading to women that if you have your hero calling other women who sleep with men for survival sluts and club like puck sluts, and sorry, that's for hockey, but if you talk about women that way who aren't the heroine, how can you have respect for the heroine when she starts sleeping with the hero? If you talk about all other women in one way, but your mother and your wife, they're not, right? And I don't care if that's supposed to be a way that you talk about women in the mafia. Like, you are a woman writing a book. You can find other creative ways to show that that woman was kind of a villain. Because again, I'm not saying the stepmother is a good woman. I don't think she is. She does things that I don't like. But is the only way to show that she's a villain to call her a slut? No. And that particularly pisses me off just because I know of other ways you can show that she is like the evil woman in the story. You could call her conniving. You could call her social climbing. You could call her Machiavellian. Like, you can find other ways to show that she's using her body or manipulating the father without just saying slut and saying the only way she's manipulating him is with her vagina, because that's not true. She's obviously not only using her body to manipulate the dad, or she wouldn't be where she was. So anyway, that is not a full like hatred towards Filthy Rich. I still enjoyed rereading it, the parts that were Anessa and Owen, and I love their journey, and I love how encouraging Owen is of Anessa. Their relationship is really beautiful. It honestly is the creep of the rest of the series. Like, Serena Ackroyd just doesn't know how to write a standalone. Ooh, I said it. She doesn't know how to do it. And I fully stand with that because I have read so many other Mafia authors who, yes, like any, of course their series build upon each other, but I could drop in the middle. I am doing it. I bounce all over the place in Neva's books, and I never feel lost about the couple that I'm reading about. There's only 2 books in her entire world that you have to read them in order or be lost. So I just didn't like that. So I actually did bump my rating down to a 4-star for that one. And I rarely lower them down, but I just could no longer keep Filthy Rich at a 6-star when I've held it so high for so many years, when I have so many issues with those things now. But again, there still will be places where I recommend Filthy Rich for those aspects that I find exceptional. It's just things age poorly. Things don't hit you right anymore. This is an exaggeration. I've literally read 100 more Mafia books since I've read Filthy Rich. Filthy Rich was in the first 15% of Mafia that I read, and I've read 100 plus more at this point, and I have a lot more to compare to now. So 4-star for that one. Still a lot of good in there, and I'm glad that I reread it and that I'm able to articulate the things that have changed for me. And I also know now better ways to recommend it when it's time. I spend a really long time on that one, but that's okay. Some of these will be quicker. All right, we got a fanfic. Literally, fanfic is going to be every other thing because I peppered it in. I was reading fanfic at night and books during the day, basically. So I read Home Ice Advantage. This was by Tay Writes 11. And this was one that I saw recommended as one. Yes, okay. This one was recommended because this one is basically the AU of what if Shane and Ilya weren't rivals. So this is an AU of what if the rivalry never had a chance. What if they were teammates all along, basically. So this AU is set up that they're drafted still to the other team, to the opposite teams. But now, Shane gets traded to Boston before even the end of like his first season. So I think it's like after the All-Star game or something like that. I don't even fully remember. I just know that like he doesn't even finish like his first season. Or maybe it's in the beginning of the first. So they had hooked up. It must be but they hadn't even had full sex yet. So yes, I think it was like after the All-Star game because they had just hooked up a couple weeks ago. And they were, yes, okay, now I have it right here. And Ilya was planning to come to Shane's apartment when they had their next game against each other in Montreal. So that's where it's kind of set up, is to be like they'd had their like first hookup after the like ad that they shoot together, and then they had their hookup at the All-Star game, and then Shane gets traded to Boston. So Montreal gets rid of Shane, and he gets traded to Boston. So yeah, that was home ice advantage. And now Rosenhoff is his captain, and they are now, it kind of puts a kibosh on them hooking up for quite a while though, because now Shane is super paranoid about it. Like it makes it even more difficult for them to hook up because he's on the team. And this made me very interested about other fics where Shane would be in Boston. So we're going to come back around to this. But yes, I read Home Ice Advantage, and this one wasn't super long. I think this fic ended up being about, this fic ended up being like 160 pages or something. And I really enjoyed it. It was a good time. And again, it more so gave me the idea to read one where Shane would get traded to Boston. And we will come back around to that. So yes, I will put a link to this one. Like I said, I don't have too much to say. It ends up being then, they don't win. Sorry, I'm getting cold. So putting my sweater on my arms down here. They don't win the cup that, first year there, but then through the summer, Shane really kicks into gear, and then the next year, they're like, we're going to take Montreal down for how they have basically like dissed Shane, by like the only reason Montreal was going to make it to the playoffs was because of Shane, and then they traded him away. So yeah, that one was good. Next, I had the wild card, and it is really funny how this worked out, but I basically read all hockey things this week, and I didn't even do that on purpose. I mean, it just so happens that anytime I'm reading like heated rivalry fic, that's always going to be hockey. But I read The Wild Card by Stephanie Archer, which was a recent release. This was a very anticipated one, and I had an ALC of this. I'm on Stephanie's ARC team. And this one is the final book in the Vancouver Storm series. And this one was cool because this one is about the coach who's a single dad. So this was about Tate and the owner's daughter, who's Jordan. Now, Jordan is semi-estranged from her father, who, again, is the owner. And she actually owns a bar. But she actually has more connection with hockey than you'd think. But she's estranged from her father because he wasn't really there much for her growing up, being as involved in hockey as he was. And her father wasn't there when her mother died. He actually missed even the funeral when the mother died. And so she holds a grudge against him. However, her father is very important in Tate's life. And Tate doesn't understand why Jordan is so hard on her father. And he's a little baffled by that. And she gives Tate a really hard time because she thinks he sucks up to her dad too much. But Tate is a single dad. He's about 10 years older than her. And they just really kind of rub wrong up against each other. But her father makes kind of a deal with her that if she will come and work for the team for the year, and if the team makes it to the playoffs, he will give the team to her. And she doesn't really want the team. However, she is good friends with a lot of people on the team. She doesn't really care about Tate. Like I said, she pretends really not to, but she's really close with a lot of the players who all come to her bar after games. And she's very close with a lot of the players' ladies, who some of the ladies work for the team as well. You know, there's Darcy, who's the statistic gal. One of the ladies, I think, does socials. And then a couple of the ladies, their partners are players. And so she doesn't want her dad to sell the team, and possibly they could lose, you know, members of the team and everything. And so she agrees to do this job. And her plan is to, if they make it to the playoff, basically like sell the team to Tate or something like that. But she's not going to tell Tate that because she doesn't want him to get a big head. And so begins this reluctant kind of partnership between her and Tate to help the team be successful. And she actually does some work in helping like recruit people, recruit players. She does scouting and things like that. And then it also becomes almost a roommate situation too, when she gets kicked out of her apartment for adopting a cat. And Tate has a guest house that she moves into. And so she gets to know him and his little girl really well. And there's a bunch of cuteness that has to do with that, which we love. So it was a really slow burn, as Stephanie Archer likes to write. And I wouldn't really call it enemies, but I did put this one as kind of a rivals to lovers. And also a bit of a like forbidden thing, because he's technically her boss for a good part of this book, at least while she's pretending to, you know, not fully be the owner's, you know, I mean, she is the owner's daughter, but she has a role where, you know, Tate's kind of her boss for a good part of the story. So yeah, I really enjoyed these two. Stephanie Archer does slow burn really well. Like the tension really built up really well between them. You get to learn, of course, why Tate is so close with her dad, why Jordan, you know, I mean, it kind of makes sense why Jordan is upset with her dad. I mean, he wasn't there for some very important things, and it's really fair why she would be mad at him, to be honest. He fucked up in a lot of ways. And yeah, I just really love how she built the slow burn of these two. And yeah, I really love the audiobook. This was narrated by Aaron Shetlock and Vanessa Edwin. They did a really good job in duet narrating this. And I really love this series. I really loved seeing all of the couples from the previous books. I still need to go back to the beginning and read the first three, excuse me. I've read the second three, or maybe there's just two I haven't read. I think there's three I haven't read. There's either 5 or 6 in this series. And for sure I know I've read 3 of the books. I just can't remember if I've read books 3, 4, 5 or 4, 5, 6. I don't know. But yeah, I've read 3 of them and I liked all of them. So I gave this one 4.5 stars, and it was a 2.5 on the spice scale. Okay, next up I had another fanfic, and I'm going to talk about the next 2 because they were actually basically a series. Like they were parts 1 and 2. So we'll just talk about them together, even though I read something in between them. So I read Something You Can Fix and Something You Can Build. And as I mentioned, I was interested in ones where Shane gets traded to Boston. But I also was interested in this one for the premise of Something You Can Fix, which is a short one. It's only 100 pages. And then Something You Can Build is literally like a book length. That one's 412 pages. It's much longer. And the fic author said she's going to write another one that is kind of like set during the long game, but we'll explain this. So the way this works out is Something You Can Fix. Imagine if someone recorded Shane and Rose's conversation. Okay, something that we've all kind of joked about that they had that conversation in a very public place. Well, what if someone did record it and they released it online? And what's really spooky about this also is that I think a lot of us, if we're following the fandom right now, knows that people would abso-fucking-lutely do this, because just think of all the paparazzi photos that are getting released of them any place they're seen. And, you know, we don't mean the fan photos, which are consensual, you know, when any of the guys agree to smile by a fan, they may ask that fan to wait to share a photo. But in general, they know that a fan's going to share a photo that is taken with them. But, you know, and I know these are the people and not the characters, but like, I'm just referencing an example, and that's what made this fic like hit so hard. Because like, there's just photos that TMZ shared of like Connor and Francois having dinner together last night, and whatever. People have speculation that that was like a setup because they're sitting on the same side of a booth or whatever. It's literally a booth that is a U shape. It isn't a thing or whatever, like, but because they were so obvious, I'm like, no, people are allowed to go out to dinner. And it doesn't mean it was a setup or anything. Like, people are allowed to go out to dinner and someone takes a picture of it. And you know that if someone recorded an intimate conversation between two people, it would be on TMZ the next day, you know? And so in this case, though, the way the timeline worked is that this conversation was overheard of Shane and Rose, exactly basically the way we saw it on like the TV version. Then there was the All-Star game where Shane and Ilya make progress, and basically like in this fic, like they agree to like they admit this, you know, and Shane has admitted to Ilya that he's gay. They still haven't fully went forward with more yet. And then Ilya's father has died. And so at the point of this story, Ilya is actually in Russia dealing with his dad dying. And things are still kind of up in the air with them. I mean, of course they are, but like all of that stuff has happened. The video has been recorded, and while Ilya is in Russia, this video leaks. And the fic starts with Shane literally like his world is self-destructing. So Ilya isn't linked to Shane in this video though, right? No names are spoken because Shane doesn't tell Rose who is the man that he has been with, but it's out that he's gay, and that he slept with men, and that his relationship with Rose isn't real. And Shane gets outed in this horrific way. And so he's still on Montreal, and Hayden and his parents and some of his team members basically all rush to be with him. And Ilya and Svetlana, they make their way back from Russia. And so he basically ends up telling like Hayden and his parents that Ilya is the man he was talking about. But no one else knows at that point. So at the end of that disaster situation, not the end of the fic, but just at the end of this first like little bit there, his family and, well, I mean, the whole world knows he's gay, but at the end of that, his family and his closest friend know that Ilya is the one he's talking about. And Ilya, you know, fully tells him he loves him and all of those things, but he tells Ilya, he's like, you don't need to come out too. Like, it's still dangerous for you. Though now Ilya's dad is dead. He doesn't have any reason to go back to Russia anymore now either. But he's like, it'll be too much if it also comes out about you. You know, you don't need to do that stuff too. But he's still playing for Montreal. And in this fic, it also is kind of like Shane being outed also gives Scott a boost to come out. So now in this case, like, it's kind of a reverse of like Scott is encouraged by Shane to come out. but Scott gets still all this positive attention, and Shane got such a negative attention. Also just for how it came out, because Shane looked, you know, weak in wanting to be the hole rather than the peg type of thing too. So anyway, that's the first fic. And this first fic though, like, spoilery, because as what I said, I was interested in reading fics where Shane gets traded to Boston. And what happens by the end of Something You Can Fix is that Ilya goes to the cottage, and when he's at the cottage with him, Shane gets a phone call from his agent that he's getting traded to Boston. So he's literally in bed with Ilya when he gets a phone call that he's been traded to Boston. So it's awful in a sense and wonderful at the same time. And then the next fic, Something You Can Build, is Shane moving to Boston. And it's his, basically their, like, run to the Stanley Cup, basically. And it was really good. Like, I don't even want to, like, I really, really liked this, like, fic 1-2 punch. And again, this one's much longer. The Something You Can Build covers, like, a whole season, and the fic writer did a really good job with this one. And there's a lot of complex parts in this one, because again, Shane is out and Ilya isn't out yet, because now that he's been traded there, Shane is like, I don't want to make this really complicated, like, and he also is like, I really can't be outed again, is how he feels, because he's like, I can't have something else, I can't have another choice taken away from me, and so I really need us to stay a secret for now, because I just can't have another choice taken away, and it just feels like so painful. So anyway, those two fics, Something You Can Fix and Something You Can Build, really liked those, and I'll leave links to those down below. All right, then I had an ALC for Cage by Tia Louise, and this was a book that it came out last month, but then the audiobook just released this week, so it's technically like a new release kind of thing, and I'd been holding out for the audiobook because I love reviewing Tia's audio. One was narrated by, I'm pretty sure I've listened to both of them before. I know I have, but I haven't listened to them often. This was Liam DeSosimo and Willa James in a duet narration. And this was really cool. So this is a hockey series. And this is the New Bradfords. And this is one that, so this is Gina, and I was excited about this because this is little Gina. So she's actually named after Regina, who is the blind woman who's kind of like the adopted grandma to the Bradfords in the Bradford Boys series. And Gina is actually a like dog show lady, and she's actually like went to school about like dog breeding and temperaments and stuff. And she has a show dog named Spanky, who is a poodle, and so cute. And she lives in this house with her cousins, which the first book was, what was the first one? Was Pinch the first one? I can't remember, but that first one was the accidental pregnancy one. And in this one, we have Owen comes to stay temporarily. He's new to the team. He's actually a bit older, and he's a widower with a little girl. He has a 7-year-old girl. And to start with, he's staying with them temporarily while he looks for a house. And his daughter is actually staying with his family still while he tries to find a house. And so he's temporarily living with them. And he brings his dog, who's a bloodhound. And it's so cute because his dog, her name is Ladybird, and she becomes best friends with Spanky, the poodle. And there's actually a really cute scene at the beginning, even though it is a disaster for Gina, where Ladybird and Owen like get home, and Gina is giving Spanky a haircut, and Spanky gets so excited about Ladybird being there that it messes up his haircut, which I felt really sad for Gina, but it was really cute. And anyway, they're trying to stay away from each other, and it really becomes one of those where they can't resist, but then they're just worried about what the long term could be like for them. And honestly, I was enjoying it a lot, and I really think that Tia Louise does them falling fast pretty good. But then it was like she tried to throw in a roadblock that had to do with Owen getting jealous over something really dumb, and Gina just like forgave him really fast because something dangerous happened. And then because something dangerous happened, we just like forgot about how insecure and childish that he acted way too quickly. And that's always frustrating for me when it's like, he's a grown-ass man who is a dad and a like adult, and I know I said that like, and I needed him to grovel a bit more and her not to just like give it up so easy. So that was a bit frustrating, but I ended up giving this a 4.5 star. I probably should have been a little bit harder on it, but I mean, it was a sweet story and I loved how unique it was. I liked that there was like dog shows in here, and it was also a bit nostalgic because something that my family does every Thanksgiving is watch the Purina dog show, the Westminster dog show on NBC. We watch that every Thanksgiving together, and there's a lots of talk of dog show and breeding, and I loved that Gina like went to school for that, and like it was a science and everything too, because all the women in the series thus far are like scientists in really unique ways, which was really cool. So yeah, I enjoyed it a really fair amount, and it was an ALC, so I didn't feel too bad being a little bit nicer to it, even though I maybe should have cracked the whip a little bit more. Okay, and then the final book that I finished was another reread, and that was When We Burn by Kristen Proby. This is the first book in the Blackwells of Montana. So I'm going to actually be rereading both this series and the Wilds of Montana in the coming months for patrons who want this series annotated. And this is another one, as I mentioned with Filthy Rich, that I don't think upon rereads this series is going to hold up as well as I want it to, for two reasons. One, I listen to all my Kristen Proby books because I'm basically on the ALC team. Must Love Audio, I pretty much get all the ALCs for Kristen Proby because I've been reviewing her books for 2+ years now with them. And I love the audios. They always have great talent who does the narration, and I just am very forgiving of good narration, as you know. But when I reread this and you now like know where the story ends up, there is a lot of filler. There was a lot of sex in here. Like, wow, I forgot how much sex happens, and from very early on, which, I mean, I'm not mad at, right? Like, I'm not a prude. Like, that's not a problem for me. Really more what the issue was is that because the sex started so early, these two are into each other so early, there was no conflict in this book at all. None. Like, none. And it was over, it was almost 400 pages that it did not need to be. That's really what the problem is. Like, this book could have been 200 pages, which I know it wouldn't be because Kristen Proby's not going to put out a book that short. But for what the actual content was, this would have been just as enjoyable as a 200-page book. Like, this one could have been a filler novella. I don't think every book in the series is like that. Like, I know for sure a couple of them in here, I think the rereads will hold up much better. But this one is a brother's best friend. It's a single dad. They are neighbors, and it's also of a, like, Bridger. Danny has, like, always liked him, but because she was the younger sister of his friend and because she was from a really rough home, he has to, like, he had to put up walls between them. I think he had to push her away when she was younger, but because she was younger than him, and it wasn't appropriate back then. And he did end up married to, like, her high school bully because he got that lady pregnant and he married her, and then that woman abandoned him and the baby when things were tough. So now he's a single dad, and Danny, again, grew up in a tough home life. She's a plus-size heroine. She was, again, bullied by this woman that he married, so she felt really kind of betrayed that, it was fine that he wasn't in love with her, but for her brother's best friend and someone that she considered a friend to literally marry this bully, I mean, I can see why that would hurt your heart for sure. I understand it. But now she's back and she is the new teacher at school. And so she is the teacher of his little girl. And she's also his neighbor because she's renting the home that is like across the street from where his house is. He's also the firefighter chief. And pretty early on, he decides that, like, you know, I've always liked her and now she's living right there and she is perfect. Like, there's nothing about her I don't like. I'm going to make a go of it. I'm very serious about it. So right from the jump, he asked her out on a date and he's like, this isn't a joke for me. I'm very serious about it. I don't just want to fool around with you. Like, I wouldn't do that. Like, you, again, are my friend's little sister. There was a reason why I couldn't just mess around with you. But taking you on a date, I have a little girl. Like, this is serious. And I fully believe that of him, that it's very serious, which is why, again, they go on their first date at like 100 pages. They have sex when that happens. And they're literally together the whole book, you know? So there's no tension. You're never worried. There's a couple moments of jealousy, like her car breaks down once, and so a friend at work drives her home. That guy's not skeevy or being a creep. He literally drives her home from work because her car didn't start. And you have Bridger act jealous, so he has an excuse to fuck her on the counter. And I'm almost like, Bridger, would you rather that guy have just left her at school waiting for a tow? No, you would have said, honey, you can't stay there. Like, there was no right answer there. And then randomly at the 75% mark, his ex shows up, makes weird threats about, like, if you don't give me $1 million, I'm going to try to take Birdie. When she has no rights to Birdie, the little girl, I'm going to try to take Birdie if you don't give me $1 million. Like, literally, the ex makes no sense, especially when you reread this. Like, I understood the drama of her coming back in because she, again, was the ex and was Danny's bully in high school. So having her pop up and say, like, oh yeah, you're opening your legs for him, that's all he wants from you. Like, the little girl doesn't even know what her mom looked like. So she was like, who's that scary lady? There was no tension to that other than, like, ew, who's this bitch showing up calling Danny names? Danny isn't insecure about her at all. Like, story structure wise, it makes no sense when you revisit like, upon revisiting this book, there's no tension, there's no conflict because you're never in. And again, it's not like I want to be in fear of them as a couple. You guys know I'm not always here for that stuff. It's just like, come up with a better one. There's a storyline of a, like, firebug who's starting fires. Makes sense. He's a firefighter. But then you know, there's also then the drama of his ex, who she doesn't show up till 75% in. So you already know, you're like, well, she's not the one who's starting fires because that has nothing to do with what's going on here. So I already knew that those two things weren't connected because there was no hint of her until 75% in. So this book just made no sense. So this is another one that I had rated this higher the first time I read it because I love the narration. It was an ALC. It is very sexy. Like, dude, they bang so many times. I stopped keeping count. I think they banged 8 or 9 times in this book. Like, it's hot. Like, they are burning it up, okay? But it just did not need to be. And I don't even think this is incredibly long, but it did not need to be almost 400 pages. It could have been 200 and the same things would have happened in it, you know? And I think Kristen Proby can do better than that. So I bumped this one down to a 4-star. It's maybe even a little less. And it is a 3.5 on the spice scale. So, all right. Wrapping it up. I know I did a lot of ranting on books I previously have loved more, but I just got to be honest when I do that. You know, sometimes when you reread things, you're not as dazed by them, right? And that was just the case with this, where I was like, yeah, I can tell that I listened to this and I wasn't, you know, when I'm annotating the book, I'm literally taking notes. And so I'm taking notes and I'm like, yeah, I'm not just listening to this and letting it flow by, you know, or going like, oh, that was hot when he was banging around the counter. I'm literally reading and writing it, and I'm like, wait, why is this bitch just showing up just now? You didn't lay the groundwork for any of that. And then wait, you've been having fires happen since the 4th chapter, but the person who is setting the fires as that conflict has nothing to do with this conflict. So there was no like tension to that at all. It was just a danger that, I mean, that's still bad. There's fires, but it had nothing to do with this part. So it's just, I'm sorry, the romances still have to make sense sometimes, guys. They gotta make sense sometimes. So yeah, but anyway, let's wrap this one up. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my new channel members, as I mentioned, for joining. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the video today. Make sure you like this, hype this video. If you remember to, I gotta remember to ask you to hype it, because that does seem to be helping a little bit. And yeah, I will, like I said, be gone next week, but I'll still have 3 videos go up. Very excited to celebrate my grandparents. That is amazing. 60 years, you guys. Can you believe it? 60 years. That's wild. So, thank you so much, friends, and I'll see you next time. Bye.